He is huge for a cornerback, very tall. So he stands out there. He's hard to miss when he's playing first team reps. And I think that at least to start, Jordan Addison is really going to have to earn his time.
Coller, quite simply, you were at the first day of Vikings Training Camp today out at TCL Performance Center. What were your big takeaways from the first day?
Well, first of all, it's very hot. That's a takeaway. Very, very hot out there. But no, I mean, first, I mean, it's just good to have football back. We're out there, we're having practices, and it was a short practice. So there wasn't a ton of reps for everybody to take. And that's kind of how it usually starts out with everyone's first day back at school. But one thing that I did notice that stood out right away was just the cornerback position. And we know that this is going to be quite the battle, but a guy whose name has not really been thrown about a whole lot during the offseason that was sort of an under the radar signing was Jawan Williams, who is a former second round pick of the New England Patriots. And we saw him a bit in minicamp, and he's a uniquely sized gentleman, I should say. He is huge for a cornerback, very tall. So he stands out there. He's hard to miss when he's playing first team reps. And that was interesting because I think that we expected to see, Mekhi Blackman out there with the first team, Andrew Booth Jr., but instead it was Jawan Williams, Byron Murphy, and Caleb Evans as the starting corners. Now that's just day one. That doesn't mean that that's how it's going to look of the opening kickoff of the season. That's a long way away and everybody's got to earn it. But that's a player who really did fly under the radar and might be intriguing to somebody like Brian Flores, who I think tries to look at these players' skill sets and say, how can I use this guy? What can I do with him? How can I mold this ball of clay? And Jawan Williams is still, I think, a very intriguing player, even though he had a lot of stops and starts and injuries when he was with the New England Patriots. I would also say in the secondary, interesting to see Josh Metellus kind of getting back to the role that he was in during minicamp, where he's moving around. He's in some of those three safety looks. We saw Marcus Davenport bouncing outside and inside from his pass rushing positions, and Lewis Cine was with the second team until the very end of practice. Harrison Smith, I don't want to say got banged up to alarm anybody, but there was a play where he kind of, went down and then he's okay, but just took a couple of reps off and Lewis Cine went in. But that's kind of the starting point for everyone. And on the offensive side, a lot of mixing and matching with wide receivers. It's not always easy in Kevin O'Connell practices to say, okay, this guy was wide receiver 1, 2, 3, because they're running out sort of hockey line changes at times. But it was noticeable how much Jalen Naylor was out there at the same time as Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne. And I think that at least to start, Jordan Addison is really going to have to earn his time, that, Jalen Naylor knows this offense, and it's not what anyone wants to see as the first round pick behind Jalen Naylor. And that, will probably change throughout the summer if Jordan Addison can do it. But that is something to monitor where that stands. It's very clearly Jefferson and KJ Osborne as a tandem. They were out there almost every time they were running reps, and then Jalen Naylor was out there a lot with them. So yeah, I mean, a short practice, not one that we can really draw a lot of conclusions about, but we are back.
I know it's only one day, and the other question is kind of around the vibes around camp. Coming off the 13-4 season, the first round playoff exit, a bunch of changes on the defense. What is the feeling around training camp this year as maybe opposed to last year?
Yeah, I think that the difference is just that with last year, we knew a lot of what was going to happen before it happened in camp. There just weren't going to be a ton of battles. It wasn't like Patrick Peterson or Zadarius Smith was fighting for their jobs. And by the way, as far as notes go, that reminds me that Danielle Hunter, though he is supposedly in the building, we did not see him at all today. And also Brian O'Neill is still working off to the side as he continues to recover from his Achilles injury. So Oli Udoh was on there on the offensive side. But I think just the sheer amount of players who have a chance to come in and do something. I mean, Tristan Jackson had a great catch. Most people don't know Tristan Jackson, but last year he showed up, made an impression, won a practice squad job over Amir Smith-Marset by simply outplaying him during preseason. And then he comes right out on day one, makes another catch that was, probably the catch of the day today, and another player that's young and worth watching. So, I mean, you can almost go position to position. It appeared that Kene Nwangwu was getting mostly the second RB snaps today. Again, I don't want to draw too many conclusions until, we see it day after day, but Nwangwu was another guy that brings a lot of intrigue. So when you're watching 11 on 11, there's a lot to look at instead of just, hey, I wonder who the fifth or sixth wide receiver is. There's battles really all over the field.
That's been another Purple Insider Extra for Bring Me the Sports. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Purple Insider Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Talk to you next time.